I manifested $47,880 in 31 days. And before you click off because that sounds like every other manifestation guru on the internet, let me be clear. I didn't light candles. I didn't stare at a vision board. I didn't repeat affirmations in the mirror like a psychopath. What I did was way simpler and way weirder. I changed exactly 3 sentences that ran through my head on loop. And those 3 sentences completely rewired how I made decisions about money. Within a week, I was taking meetings I would have avoided. Within 2 weeks, I said yes to a deal I would have talked myself out of. Within 31 days, I had deposited $47,880 that straight up would not have existed if I was still thinking the way I was thinking a month earlier. Now, here's the uncomfortable part. The money didn't show up because the universe heard me. It showed up because I started acting like a different person. And that person made different choices. And those choices had different outcomes. That's it. So if you've ever wondered why some people seem to stumble into opportunities while you're grinding your face off and getting nowhere, this is why. It's not luck. It's not connections. It's not even skill most of the time. It's that they're running a different operating system. And that operating system makes certain behaviors feel normal, and those behaviors generate results that look like magic to everyone else. Here's what we're actually doing today. We're going to explain how your internal dialogue controls your financial behavior and why most people are locked into a broke operating system without even realizing it. And once you see how this works, you're going to understand why effort without an identity shift is just expensive suffering. So let me give you a metaphor that'll make this click. Your brain is running financial software. Think of it like an operating system. This OS has default settings. Those settings determine what feels normal, what feels risky, what feels possible. And here's the thing. Most people are running broke OS version 1.0, and they're trying to install rich person apps on top of it. So they're reading books about investing. They're watching YouTube videos about starting a business. They're taking courses on crypto or real estate or whatever. But the base operating system rejects it because the OS is programmed to keep you safe. And safety to your subconscious means staying exactly who you've always been. This is why you can consume endless content about making money and still not make money. The information gets filtered through your OS, and your OS says, that's not for me. That's too risky. I'll do it later. I need more proof first. These aren't conscious thoughts most of the time. They're automatic. They're the background hum of your internal dialogue, and that hum is programming your behavior every single second. Now let me show you how this plays out in real life. Let's say you're scrolling Twitter and you see someone talking about a business opportunity. Freelancing, affiliate marketing, whatever. The opportunity itself is neutral. It's just information. But here's what happens next. If you're running broke OS, your internal response sounds like this. That probably won't work for me. I don't have enough experience. I don't know the right people. I'll look into it later, and those thoughts feel true. They feel like rational analysis, but they're not. They're just your OS protecting its current identity. Now imagine someone else sees the exact same post, but they're running rich OS. Their internal response sounds completely different. Okay, interesting. I could probably test this in a week. Who do I know that's done something similar? What's the worst case if it doesn't work? Same opportunity, two completely different responses. And the difference isn't intelligence. It's not work ethic. It's not even confidence. It's the default script running in the background. One person's OS is set to avoid risk. The other person's OS is set to evaluate opportunity. And that difference compounds over time into completely different financial realities. Here's where it gets darker. Your OS doesn't just filter opportunities, it also determines how much money you're willing to hold. There's a concept in psychology called financial set point. It's the amount of money that feels normal to you, and your nervous system will do whatever it takes to return you to that set point. So if you're used to having $3,000 in your bank account, and suddenly you get a $10,000 check, your OS panics. Because 10,000 doesn't feel normal, and unconsciously you'll start making decisions to get back to familiar territory. You'll buy something you don't need. You'll pass on a deal because now you feel like you can afford to wait. You'll relax your effort because you feel flush. Within a few weeks, you're back at 3,000. And you'll tell yourself it was bad luck or unexpected expenses, but really your OS just corrected back to baseline. This is why lottery winners go broke. This is why people who get raises somehow still live paycheck to paycheck. This is why inheritance money disappears faster than earned money. The OS wasn't upgraded, so the money just flows back out to match the internal set point. Now you might be thinking, okay, so I just need to think positive and believe I deserve more money, right? No. That's not how this works because your OS doesn't respond to words. It responds to repetition and emotional familiarity. You can say, I am a millionaire in the mirror every morning, and your OS will just laugh at you. Because it knows you're lying. It can feel the gap between the words and what you actually believe. What your OS responds to is consistent internal dialogue that feels real. Not aspirational, not fake. Real. And here's the trick. Your OS doesn't know the difference between imagination and memory. It only knows what's repeated and emotionally familiar. So if you think about being broke more than you think about having money, being broke is what feels real, and your behavior will match that reality, even if you consciously want something different. This is why most people are working against themselves. They're trying to build wealth while their internal dialogue is narrating a story of scarcity. And those two programs can't run at the same time. One of them has to win, and the OS always wins. Let me show you exactly how I use this. A month before I made that $47,000, I was stuck at around $12,000 a month in revenue, which is decent, but I wanted to scale. And every time I thought about taking bigger risks or charging more or hiring someone, my internal dialogue sounded like this. That's a lot of money. What if it doesn't work? I should wait until I'm more stable. I should prove this model first. Now, consciously, I wanted to grow, but unconsciously, my OS was set to $12,000. That was my set point. That was my comfort zone. So I did something weird. I started narrating a different internal story. Not out loud, just in my head. And the story wasn't, I will make $47,000. That would have felt fake. The story was, I'm the kind of person who handles $47,000 months. I already know how to do this. This is normal for me. And every time my brain tried to panic about a decision, I'd replay that script. I didn't force it. I didn't fake enthusiasm. I just repeated it enough that it started to feel familiar. And here's what happened. Within 3 days, my decisions changed. I reached out to a client I'd been avoiding because the project felt too big. I said yes to a partnership I would have overthought into oblivion. I hired a contractor instead of doing everything myself. None of those decisions felt risky anymore, because my OS had updated. The new baseline was someone who operates at that level, and once the behavior changed, the results followed. The $47,000 wasn't magic. It was just the natural output of a different decision-making pattern. Now let me give you a case study with real numbers so you can see how this plays out. 2 people, same age, same city, same industry, both freelancers, both making about $5,000 a month. Both want to scale to $20,000. Person A's internal dialogue sounds like this. I need to work harder. I need to get better at my craft. I need to wait for the right opportunity. I need to build my portfolio first. Person A spends 6 months improving their skills, taking courses, perfecting their website, and at the end of 6 months, they're still making $5,000 a month because their OS never changed. They're still operating from, I'm not ready yet. Person B's internal dialogue sounds like this. I'm the kind of person who charges premium rates. I work with clients who value speed and results, not just cheap work. I'm already operating at $20K a month. I just need to align my actions with that. Person B doesn't improve their skills much. They just start acting like the person who's already there. They raise their rates immediately, they pitch bigger clients, they turn down low-value work, even when it's tempting. Within 6 months, person B is at $18,000 a month. Not because they got better at their craft, but because their OS accepted a new identity. And that identity filtered every decision differently. Same starting point, same timeline, completely different outcomes. And the only difference was the operating system. Here's the part that'll make you uncomfortable. Most of the advice you've been following is designed for people who already upgraded their OS. The advice isn't wrong. It's just useless if your internal dialogue is still running the old program. You'll read a book that says, take calculated risks, and your brain will hear, but what if I fail? You'll watch a video that says, charge what you're worth, and your brain will say, but I'm not worth that much yet. You'll see someone's success story, and your brain will say, that's not realistic for someone like me. And you won't even notice it's happening, because your OS is invisible to you. It's just the way things are. This is why people can follow the exact same strategy and get completely different results. It's not the strategy, it's the operating system interpreting the strategy. And if your OS is still programmed for scarcity, every strategy you try will get filtered through that lens. You'll self-sabotage without realizing it. You'll stop right before the breakthrough because your nervous system hits the edge of what feels normal. And you'll blame the strategy instead of the OS. Quick cutaway here because I know what you're thinking. Wait, is this just a long-winded way of saying believe in yourself and stay positive? No. I'm saying your internal dialogue determines your behavior, and your behavior determines your results, and most people's internal dialogue is programmed for outcomes they don't actually want. That's not motivation. That's systems thinking. Okay, back to the breakdown. So here's the escalation most people miss. Your OS doesn't just affect your decisions. It affects which opportunities you can even see. Let me explain. When you're operating from broke OS, your attention is tuned to scarcity. You notice every bill, every expense, every risk. Your brain is constantly scanning for threats to your financial stability, and that attentional filter blinds you to upside. You literally don't see the opportunities right in front of you, because your OS is set to defend, not expand. But when you're operating from rich OS, your attention flips. You stop seeing risk everywhere. You start seeing leverage. You notice inefficiencies you could arbitrage. You see gaps in the market that no one's filling. You recognize underpriced assets. Same environment, different filter, and the filter is controlled by your internal dialogue. This is why poor people focus on saving and rich people focus on earning. It's not because rich people are irresponsible, it's because their OS is tuned to a different frequency. One focuses on protecting what you have, the other focuses on expanding what's possible. And you can't run both at the same time. Here's the thing that finally cracked this for me. I realized that my internal dialogue wasn't describing reality, it was creating it. Every time I thought this is too expensive or I can't afford that, I wasn't stating a fact. I was giving my brain an instruction, and my brain followed the instruction. It found evidence to support the belief. It filtered out options that didn't match. It made decisions that confirmed the script. So I started treating my internal dialogue like code. If I didn't like the output, I changed the input. And I didn't wait until I felt like the new script was true. I just repeated it until it became familiar. Because familiarity is what the OS responds to. Not truth, not belief. Just repetition and emotional neutrality. And that's the part everyone gets wrong. You don't need to feel excited about the new script. You don't need to convince yourself it's real. You just need to repeat it enough that your brain stops flagging it as foreign. Once it feels normal, your behavior shifts automatically. And once your behavior shifts, the results become inevitable. Another cutaway because I can already hear the comments. So you're saying, I just think about money and it appears? Congratulations, you missed the entire point. I'm saying your internal script determines your behavior, and if your behavior doesn't change, your results won't either. Thinking like a rich person makes you act like a rich person. Acting like a rich person produces rich person outcomes. It's not magic, it's causation. Let me bring this home with the 3 things that actually matter. First, audit your internal dialogue. Not what you say out loud, what you think when no one's listening. Write it down for 2 days. Just notice what your default script sounds like. If it sounds like someone who's waiting, hoping, or defending, you're running broke OS, and no strategy will save you until you upgrade. Second, write a new script. Not affirmations, not fake hype, just the internal dialogue of the person who already has the result. What would they think when they see a price tag? What would they think when they see an opportunity? What would they think when they're making a decision? Write it down, then repeat it in your head throughout the day. Not with emotion, just with consistency. Let it run in the background. Third, stop checking for proof. This is where most people fail. They run the new script for 3 days and then check their bank account and panic because nothing's changed yet. But your OS doesn't update in 3 days. It updates when the new script feels more familiar than the old one. And that takes weeks, not days. So you run the script, you let your behavior shift naturally, and you don't look for validation until the new baseline has locked in. That's the process. That's how I made $47,880 in 31 days. Not because I manifested it, but because I upgraded my OS, and the upgraded OS made decisions the old version couldn't even imagine. Most people will ignore this because it sounds too simple. They'll keep looking for the complex strategy, the secret hack, the perfect moment, and they'll stay stuck because they're trying to install rich person apps on broke person hardware. And that never works. The ones who get it will spend this week auditing their internal dialogue. They'll notice how much of their thoughts are programmed for scarcity, and they'll start running a different script. Not because they believe it yet, but because they understand how operating systems work. And within a month, they'll look back and realize they're making decisions they couldn't have made before, and those decisions will generate outcomes that look like luck to everyone else. But you'll know better. You upgraded the OS, the rest was just output.